I want to offer some reframes on the topic of eating disorders, disordered eating, and addiction. It is topics that I find extremely interesting because it has so much more to do with our human psychology than it really has to do with food or drugs or caffeine or whatever it is that your addiction might be, or however your disordered eating or eating disorder might express itself. So we are living in a world where we are using food to suppress and to numb uncomfortable emotion, but at the other end of the spectrum also to enhance feelings and emotions of joy, celebration. And what this really tells us is that we've given food an emotional charge. We are no longer eating for survival purposes only, but we're using food to make ourselves feel better, to maybe cheer ourselves up when we don't feel so good. So we use food to enhance our current emotional state or try to escape from it. And in all its objectivity, that is a bit disordered, which is what I mean by that we are all at some level experiencing disordered eating, maybe at one point in our life or throughout our life. And it's become very normal within our society. Oftentimes, it is the only escape strategy that we know of, so that's why we seek to it unconsciously, because it's the only way we know how to self-regulate. And that's why we keep ourselves stuck in this loop, in this pattern. We need to find new ways to self-regulate without these self-destructive patterns and substances or coping strategies. When we are constantly changing up our diets and we are swinging the pendulum from one extreme to the other, resulting in binging, restriction, and compensative behaviors, this leaves us in a negative loop that is very hard to break free from. And if this is you, I really encourage you to go on an information cleanse and really just unplug and start to feel into more, like, forget what has worked for anybody else, but focus more on you and your body and what feels good to do for myself right now. Because we simply cannot bypass the intimacy, the into-me-see that it requires to heal our relationship to food, to nourishment, and to our body. Because food is such an intimate thing. It's something that we take into our body. Our cells absorb it, and the food, it literally becomes us. And we don't find this intimacy by reading more articles or following all the girls on Instagram that have done it. We need to really take an inner view with ourselves and learn to be present with whatever is present right here for me and in my life. It can spark curiosity and motivation to look to other people and to get inspired by their methodology. But the unsexy answer to all of this is that there is no magic bullet. Cultivating a healthy relationship to food and healing the body, it doesn't come in some neat little package delivered to your door and then you do it tomorrow and you feel brand new. It requires deep intimacy. It requires for you to put the work and the time into finding your own way, to find out your own groove and to find out what works for you, because it's going to be different for all of us. And I personally don't believe that a 21-day fast or something, it can do that work for you, because you simply cannot bypass the attention that it requires for you to really learn how to serve your body best so your body can serve you right back. When it comes to mending your relationship with an eating disorder or disordered eating or addictions, I believe it cannot be done through discipline and force, but it's the other end of the spectrum. It's coming from a place of love and tenderness, and really tending to what it is that you actually need and what is going on beneath this. And sometimes it's something we need to journey with for a season or maybe a whole lifetime. We all have different dharmas, and we all have a different backpack with karma and things that our soul wants to explore. But I really feel that when we loosen this resistance and this fight and this grasp for control, it's softening more, and it's actually easier to see it for what it is and to let go and to let it run its cycle, because it's going to be in your reality and in your life as long as it is relevant. But as long as we resist, it persists. I was reading something the other day where a woman, she was explaining a little bit what she experienced when she was overeating. And she mentioned something about like, I better eat it because when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. Otherwise, I cannot stop thinking about it. But at the same time, there's this self-hatred and so much shame and this inner critic alive and just shaming oneself in the same moment. So it's really a complex inner battle. It is really a mixed cocktail of instant gratification and some peace and quiet away from this inner critic, because as soon as you overeat and you objectively overeat, all the energy is going towards digestion and you're going to crash completely, which is a little time away from this inner critic and this mind. But at the same time, there's this shame and this self-hatred that is just building, because all that is just going to come in tenfold afterwards. What is underneath it all is a lack of presence and ability to be in living room with your own fear and your own uncomfortable emotions, and no longer run away, but start to call those fractured parts of self back and look at where did they fracture off in the first place, and allow compassion and empathy and softness and tenderness in, because underneath it all is an inner child that is dying to be loved and to be taken care of. One thing that can be helpful when you feel this urge to overeat or reach out for your addiction is to ask yourself, would I feed this or would I do this to my child? And most often we would say no. So why do it to yourself? We often feel like we can carry a burden heavier than anybody else. But in that moment, remember that inner child and know you don't have to carry a burden heavier than anybody else. That is often the ego's ways trying to compensate for not feeling adequate enough and trying to prove to itself that it's stronger than anybody else and that you cannot share your most tender inner self, and that this tender inner self is struggling with anybody else. So you just keep it to yourself and you just keep it locked in here. But I really invite you to try to loosen up some of that restriction and some of that discipline and force. So many of us are operating with a black and white mindset. It has to be all or nothing. That type of mindset is not very loving, and it's not going to help you mend your relationship to food or to let go of addictive behaviors. So instead of giving yourself ultimatums and this is the last chance I'm giving myself, try to let go of that resistance and say to yourself, I am never going to give up on me. I am going to try my best every day. I'm going to try again and again and again. And I might fall 100 or 1,000 times, but I am never going to give up on me. I have all my life. I have my whole life to journey with this. That is often the love and the empathy and the compassion that we need. We cannot learn to love ourselves and to heal ourselves from a place of shame and force and hatred. We can only love ourselves and heal ourselves from a place of love and a place of softness. I hope that this could bring some light and some perspective around eating disorders and addiction, and that it really has so much more to do with our mind, that it really has to do with the food or the thing that we addicted to. That is mostly just a strategy that we are familiar with, and that's why we seek to it, because it's the only thing that we know. And it's really, again, coming down to freeing yourself from the shackles of this very disciplinary and controlling way of being in your life, and leaning more towards this softer and more compassionate space where you can breathe more, you can be more present with whatever is going on. You don't really need to run from it anymore. But I can be here and I can hold myself through it. And I'm not going to run away, but I'm going to seek the help and the support that I need. And I'm going to take this and see this as a journey that is ever unfolding.